And a good Saturday afternoon, November 7th. Blade family, far and wide, welcome to the Blade Family Reunion Podcast. I'm the lucky principal at East Bakersfield High School, Leo Holland, and welcome to our weekly podcast where we talk to alumni of East Bakersfield High School. Right now, we're focusing on alumni that are staff members here at our school. I've got a great one for you today. I'm going to be talking to Elise Sotelo. Elise is a graduate from the early 90s who has been teaching with us for some time. She'll talk a little bit about her experiences with us, I'm sure. And I know it's going to be a great one. So thanks for tuning in. I love you guys. Let's hear what Elise has to say. And this is an awesome Saturday afternoon. I'm being joined by Elise Sotelo. Miss Sotelo, good afternoon.
Hello, Mr. Holland. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's good to hear from you. I can't wait to interview you. You're such an important part of the Blade family, so I can't wait to hear how you answer the 5 questions and to get that information out for everybody. So we're still in the pandemic. It's November 7th. Just checking in with you. How are you and your family doing?
I'm doing well, considering I feel blessed. We seem to be fairly unaffected. My kids are in the Midwest. My son is in Kansas, and my daughter's in Oklahoma right now, and they're working and haven't lost any jobs or anything. So, and they're staying healthy. So that's
Good.
even better.
Good. So now, if I recall correctly, you are a mom-in-law now. Is that right?
Yes. My daughter got married last year in May.
Congratulations. Is he good? I hope
Thank
he's a good guy. I've known her a long time. Hopefully she married
right.
well.
Yeah, no, Spencer is awesome.
Good.
I'm so happy for both of them.
Oh, that's great to hear. Okay, good. And so far the pandemic has left your household alone, so that's good.
Yes.
And how about the school year? How did the school year start off for you? It's a big transition for everyone. How about for you? How's it going so far?
It feels a little easier now, considering, but I do feel like this is my 21st year teaching, all at East High, and it feels like being a new teacher as far as, just the learning curve. It's so steep for everyone, though.
Right.
So.
And I mean, it's interesting for you too, because most of our listening audience may not be aware, but you wear a lot of hats at our school, a lot of hats.
Yeah.
So over the years, when I started at East as the school police officer, you were an English teacher at East. So what are you doing now? What does that crazy principal have you doing now?
Well, I'm still an English teacher, and I also have the pleasure of teaching the archiving class. And I am the AVID coordinator and teach AVID freshmen and AVID sophomores.
So AVID, I know, is a huge initiative at EB. Archiving is an important program at East Bakersfield, and then still doing English. So let's real quick. I think most of the people who are in our neighborhood they are still aware of what we do with AVID, and everyone knows about English. Let's talk about archiving.
Yeah.
That's something that's unique to just a couple of schools in Bakersfield. Where did that archiving come from, and what is it about? Can you tell our audience about that? I think that's something people would love to hear.
Sure. Well, the mission of the class is to preserve the history of East Bakersfield High School. It is the second oldest high school in Bakersfield after BHS, of course. And it was started by Mike Warner, who happened to be my U.S. history teacher when I was a student at East. And I was fortunate enough to be able to take over the program after he left to a position at the district office. But it's really cool because not only do we preserve the school's history, but we also have some community partnerships. Kern County Museum, when we're not in a pandemic, my students get to act as docents at the Pioneer History Days and the California History Days that they hold for elementary schools. So that's been a really cool partnership. And Francisco Llamas, who is a Francisco Javier Llamas, he goes by Javier. He is now a professor at Bakersfield College. But he is a '93 grad, and we started an oral history project, which kind of has been suspended because of everything. But we're looking to get that started up again.
And so, for anyone who's been away for some time, one of the things that happens at school's age is you get on a cycle for modernization. Parts of the school get updated every so often. And one of the things that happened during the last major mod that East went through is we discovered all sorts of cool artifacts that needed to be preserved. And your program is responsible for preserving a lot of those artifacts. Am I right about that?
Yes.
So
correct.
This is something I've wanted to ask you for a long time. And there's recently. Okay, let's start from the first thing. Recently, we've had some success with having some of our artifacts designated by government organizations. Is that accurate? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh yes, I applied to through California Revealed. It's a project that works to preserve particularly audiovisual materials that deal with California history.
Mm-hmm.
So I nominated. We had some recordings of choir and band and orchestra performances dating back to, I think the oldest one, I don't have the database in front of me, but I think the oldest one is 1940. And I was able to get those accepted, and so those have been digitized and are also housed in the Library of Congress for anyone to access. So that's been really cool. When I first applied, they gave us our own Library of Congress number, designation. So for a history nerd like me, that's just it's really cool.
And it's so funny. We both taught English, and I geek out on history stuff like that too. I think that we have a Library of Congress number is about the coolest thing ever. So I'm totally
and what's funny is I nominated those recordings because without even hearing them. And I remember when EBTV News interviewed me about it. I remember Brian Atwater. He's like, "Wait, you haven't heard them?" And I said, "Well, no, we don't have a working record player. We have record players up here, but they don't work." And so he was helping us trying to get one to work, and we couldn't get it to play correctly. But so the first time I heard them was after they were digitized. I got to hear the performances.
Well, yeah, obviously that was the first time I heard it too. So when you sent it along to us, so it is I just think it's so amazing. So there's something I have wanted to ask you, and I don't think I've ever asked you this. What is the coolest thing you've discovered since you took over stewardship of the archiving program? What is the single coolest thing you think you've discovered? Because I know people bring in stuff all the time to be archived with you guys. Things from the 40s, 50s, 60s that parents and grandparents left in attics and all sorts of stuff. But what is the single coolest thing that you've come across in your stewardship of that program?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I probably should have told you I was going to ask you this question. I've never asked you this question. I wanted to ask you for a long time because you see all of it. You see it all as it comes in since you've taken over.
Right.
And when in the archiving room, so while you think about that, let me just give everyone some frame of reference. So for Blades out there listening, the archiving room is the loft area above the library. They're in the library, still the same. There's a stairwell that goes up to what was an office area that is now the archiving room. So all of the artifacts that are discovered are stored there, and that's where our archiving program keeps those items for posterity for our school.
Right.
And the students take a lot of pride in the things that we have up there, and from generations, and everything from band uniforms over the years to photographs and yearbooks and those sorts of things. So I gave you some time to think about it. I'm running out of things to say about it, Elise, so I need an answer. What is the single coolest thing you've come across?
Uh, that's so tough. Well, something that I think, and it was donated before I started teaching archiving, but I remember finding it in a box. There is a doll, a handmade doll with a EB cheer uniform, and I found out Tanya Hildebrand. Gosh, I cannot remember what year she graduated. I want to say 63.
Okay.
We're Facebook friends because we became friends after the 50th. The 75th celebration. But there is a doll that is fashioned after her that she told me that a friend of hers had made in a sewing class. And so it looks just like her, Tanya. And then we also have her actual cheer uniform, which has her name on it, Tanya.
Oh,
so
that's cool.
The students get a kick out of that because, first year I pulled this doll out of the box. I'm like, this is kind of creepy. What is this? But then once I learned the story behind it, I was like, that's really cool that we have this. So
that is cool. Okay.
Especially now that I know the actual Tanya. So
that is cool.
Yeah.
There are a lot of really cool artifacts up there. That's a really, really personal, really cool. I don't. It seems like I've seen that doll up there.
Yeah. Well, I did have a couple of years ago. The archiving students thought it was really funny to put the doll in the window that you can see. That faces the library.
Yes.
So you may have seen it.
Okay, that is probably yes. Absolutely. Okay.
That was probably it. Another cool thing, now that you've sparked my memory here. Okay. I really like looking at the original from the first year PTA records of the first PTA meetings that were held for East High in 1938, and how the handwritten people signed in and with their addresses and the old telephone numbers, the KL5 type phone numbers, so that's really neat too.
Okay, so I've got a cool story for you then. When I was the cop, the year before I started teaching, we had a tech on site. I think his name was Steve Gum. And Steve was telling me about the tunnels and, stuff about the history of the school that he discovered just in being the tech there, running wire around campus and stuff like that. And Steve said that he had this cool closet he wanted to show me in the old industrial arts wing, which is now our 500 building. And essentially what he had discovered, and I use discovered in quotes because I think someone knew this stuff was there, was a room that had probably 50 years of PTA notes, handwritten PTA notes in boxes. So he took me up into this room and just started kind of opening boxes with me and showing me these PTA notes from, way back. So I've seen some of those notes. It's really cool. And the handwriting is so neat back then. I mean, you could, you could tell there was time spent on penmanship in classes. Like that was part of your grade, is how neatly you wrote, because these parents were
correct.
Their notes were beautiful cursive writing. I recall that. That's really cool. I'm glad you have that. In fact, I didn't know what happened with those notes, so I'm glad that some of those notes got preserved. So it was really neat. It was really neat. I do have a sword in my office that I'm probably gonna have to get up to you guys to get stored somewhere, that someone recovered out of a a dumpster when we were going through that last mod as well. So.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I believe it. I've been told it's the sword. At least that's what I tell the students. So it's the blade. So I'll have to get that stored too. Yeah. All right.
Very cool.
So I have these 5 questions I love to ask, and they're my family 5 questions. And I'll say this, Elise. For clearly for people listening, they can tell that you and I have a friendship. So it's going to be fun hearing from you and getting these answers from you. We've Elise is one of the people who helped me transition from being the school cop to being a teacher, and so again, this is
even
really
you when you were the school cop, we had a little connection because I remember you were at a football game and you told me your wife graduated from East High. I was like, oh yeah, what year? And you said 93, and I remember like, oh, I probably don't know her, but what's her name? And when you said Karen Brennan, I was like, no way.
Yep.
That was my friend.
Yep. Yeah.
So we made a connection even then.
Yes, absolutely. And our daughters graduated the same year and went to school together for several years, and were debate partners off and on, and all sorts of things. So clearly, Elise and I have a really solid friendship. So it's going to be fun to hear you answer these questions. And I'll say it's always fun to hear it. It's these next few weeks as I talk to people who went to school with my wife, they're going to be especially sweet. So Elise, question number 1. What teacher or staff member made the biggest difference in your EB high school education? And this is not a class, this is a person. What person?
Right. I've been thinking about this ever since I first heard the podcast, and I knew this was the first question, because it's actually really tough for me. I'm going to have to say it's a tie. It's between Mike Warner, who was my U.S. history teacher, and Randy Ham, who was my journalism teacher.
Okay. So you've already mentioned Mike Warner, so we're going to start with him, and then we'll talk about Mr. Ham. And so both of those faculty members were on the faculty when I was an officer and teaching there, so they were long-time EB teachers. So let's start with Mr. Warner. Why Mr. Warner?
Well, for those of you who don't know, I was a teen mom, and when I moved to Bakersfield, I had just gotten married at 16 and was pregnant, and I went to East High. I enrolled at East High when I moved to Bakersfield because of the daycare, the PACE center there, and I remember being really scared, not knowing anyone, thinking everyone was going to judge me, and I had these amazing teachers that just and fellow students that just made me feel so welcome. And I remember Mike encouraging me to participate in History Day. And my paper made it all the way to state. And so I went to History Day with him, and then with Jan Roberts, who taught English briefly at East High, and she was the female chaperone. And I actually have a great story about that trip, because it was, when was that? So that was 93. And the Grateful Dead was in town in Sacramento.
Okay.
And we'd all were like, should we go? Should we go see the Grateful Dead? This could be a chance of a lifetime. So we went to the parking lot, and I don't know if you've ever been to a Dead concert. There's always colorful characters.
Yes, I've heard. I never went
in the parking lot selling stuff, right? So then it starts raining, and so then we're like, okay, well, that seals the deal. We are not going to the Grateful Dead concert. But it was just hilarious to me that the three of us,
considered
this
it
junior in high school, 2 teachers, we were, should we go?
That would have been one amazing story. I mean, it is, even though you didn't actually go into the concert, it's still
it was
awesome.
still epic.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then my history day paper, I actually it was on the banning of the grapes of wrath in Kern County.
Okay.
So I actually got to interview, because Margaret DeArmond was a math teacher at East High, who are, as you know, our 500 building is named after her.
Hmm.
Her mom was one of the first teachers at East High. She was the original drama and art teacher, Mary Smith, at the time, before she was Mary DeArmond. And I interviewed her because she'd been a teacher in Bakersfield when the Okie kids were, in the schools. And so I got to interview her for my paper before she passed away.
Oh,
So
that's cool too. Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah, that is. Okay. So.
And then same with Randy, as far as, just not judging me and not, putting me into a box, I should say. We voted. He was the new advisor that year. It was his first year being the Colonel advisor,
Hmm.
and the students, we voted on who would be the editors, and I was voted news editor.
Oh wow, that's
And
cool. That's cool.
and he believed in me, and I remember he let me go to. There were a few of us that went on a field trip to Modesto for a conference, and I was like 8 months pregnant. And then Senator Gary Hart came to campus, and I interviewed him,
Oh wow.
and it was
Oh
just
wow.
with my pregnant belly before Christian was born. And I just, I just it just means so much to me that I got to have those experiences,
Yeah.
and that those teachers, saw the potential in me and knew, they saw past the stigmatism of being a teen parent, and let me have those experiences. So
Oh, that's
I'm forever grateful.
that's huge. That's huge. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I think I believe that your story is going to resonate with a lot of our alumni and kids, and beyond just the classmates that you had. So I do appreciate you sharing that. So, what was your favorite class then?
This is another tough one, but it would be really close with U.S. government, with Rosemary Silverman,
Hmm.
because that was also We the People bicentennial. We called it bicentennial then.
Hmm.
But I will have to say it was journalism with Mr. Ham.
Okay.
Was my favorite class, because of just that's actually what I studied in college, is journalism. And what I learned from him about student free press and writing skills. And I was really shy, but journalism gave me a way to talk to people and ask questions and have a reason to do it, because I've always been nosy. And I tell my students that I'm nosy, but journalism gives you an excuse to be nosy.
Yeah,
You can ask
absolutely.
questions that
Yeah,
you wouldn't be able to ask.
that's true. That's a
So
very good point. It's a very good point. It gives you an opportunity to dig deeper.
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I had great experiences at Bakersfield College. I was the editor of the Renegade Rip, and the Bakersfield Californian paid for my undergrad because of all the scholarships, journalism scholarships. So it served me well.
That's awesome. That's very cool. And a lot of what you do now still requires that digging and asking questions. I know with being a steward of the archiving program and those sorts of things, you still get to dig around and be nosy. So that's cool.
Yes.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. So high school memories. What was your favorite high school memory? You've already shared a couple with us. What was your
Mhm.
favorite?
I would have to say that it was going to, once again, I got to go to Sacramento
Hmm.
as a senior with Miss Silverman and the bicentennial student, and going to state for We the People. It was so exciting, and I learned so much, and we became a family. I just posted recently, Cynthia Munn, who had been, but for our
Mhm.
listeners, was a longtime history teacher at East High, but she's also a wonderful photographer and loves to share her photos with people. She had given me a few years ago a photo of us from when we won locally back when the competition was at CSUB, and that photo had come up on my Facebook memories, and so many of those folks I'm still friends with, and
Oh, that's cool.
we're talking about we need to have a reunion because there's no other class where we felt like a family like that, because we spent so much time, and we were experts on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. It really, I learned so much, and to feel like that empowered as a high school student, that's why I still help out with that competition, because I believe in it. Even if you don't become a politician or a lawyer, it was such a powerful experience.
So,
And
okay, so now that gives me an interesting segue into something I know about you. So, what was your college major? Clearly, let me back up. Let me give the reason why I'm asking this question. Clearly, a lot of your curiosity, your intellectual curiosity, was primed by a few important classes in your life. I mean, you've now talked about two social studies classes, your government class and your U.S. history class,
mhm,
and the competition you had for bicentennial, which we now call We the People. So no matter
right,
which generation you are, if you were in that class, you know what I'm talking about. And you've also
right.
talked a little bit about journalism. So, um, what degrees did you end up pursuing after high school? Which directions did you go? Because I think it's constructive for kids to hear how those classes led you to the curiosity you had as an adult
Mhm.
learner. What did you do?
Well, I had a full ride to CSUB, but I chose to attend Bakersfield College first because CSUB did not have a journalism degree. They had I ended up getting a BA in communications with an emphasis in journalism, but I wanted to go to Bakersfield College so I could concentrate on journalism. And so I have an AA in journalism and then a BA in communication with a minor in history.
Okay.
Um,
And then did you do anything after that, education wise?
I did work on my master's starting in 2006, and I finished all the coursework in 2009, and I never took my exam. So I do not have a master's
What were you studying?
in history.
In history,
History.
right? Yeah. So,
Yes, and at CSUB, and I've been told by some people, and I don't, I know some people have nodded their heads when I say this, but the master's in history at CSUB is comparable to some PhD programs at other schools.
yeah,
So
that's
it's very tough.
so. Yeah, I've heard similar things myself actually over the years. So, about CSUB's masters in history. So, um,
Hmm.
it's interesting to me. Like I said, I know your educational history. I'm your principal, so I'm supposed to know that stuff.
Right.
Um, but it's interesting to me because when I hear you discuss your high school experiences, the things you studied in college and where you intellectually went makes sense. And it to me is a chicken or the egg thing. I mean, do you recall whether or not you were interested in those things before you had those high school experiences, or did the high school experience really lead you in those directions?
That's a great question. As far as journalism, I had always had an interest in it. My maiden name is Skinner, and when I was a little girl, my dad was in college, and he when he got an electric typewriter, I got his old manual typewriter,
Uh huh.
and I would type out the Skinner news
Oh my
on that
goodness.
old manual typewriter. So I had an interest at a young age in journalism.
Wow. Okay. So journalism was something that came natural. Um, was history something that got peaked as you went through your high school experience?
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Okay. I kind of thought so, but I wanted to ask you that. Again, it's one of the things I've never asked. So it's interesting to hear your take on how things went for you. Okay, so the next two questions I think are kind of the money questions for our younger listeners. So, what is one piece of advice you would go back and give yourself right before you started your freshman year?
I would. There's more to it, right? But you're pausing at that, right?
Well, yeah, and then
Okay.
there's the second half is, and what would you tell kids now? So, you
Okay.
can answer it all together
So
if you'd like.
if I could go back, I would tell myself to not worry what other people thought and to go after whatever opportunities there were without worrying about anyone else. That's what I would tell myself.
Hmm.
As far as joining clubs or because like I said before, I was a pretty shy person, so I would definitely tell myself to not worry about what other people think.
Very
And
good.
I think that would still be my advice today for students to not be afraid, to be vulnerable, to put yourself out there because the experiences that you gain are so rewarding and valuable.
Yeah, I think
That
that's
it's like when we do that because I've been a link crew coordinator for a while too, and it's that speech that we give those incoming freshmen at our orientation about do you want to be the student that's watching what happens or making it happen, or or really who you don't want to be is a person that doesn't do anything and is like, wait, what happened?
right.
The time just goes by and you don't have anything to show for it.
Yeah,
So
right. No, absolutely. That's great advice. It's great advice. All right, and this last question I think is it's going to be really fun to hear your answer for this. Um, so, what does it mean to you to be a Blade?
to be a blade, I know it's such a cliche, but it really is to be part of a family, to be part of a community. I It's so great to meet people that over the years who have graduated from EB, and when you say, oh, I went to EB, there's just something special about it. I just recently listened to the podcast with Anthony Fuentes, and he kind of said the same thing. And in fact, I made it into a lesson for my archiving class to to uh, to listen and answer those questions. But there's just something about and it was powerful enough that I wanted to come back as a teacher.
Yeah,
There is a sense of community that you get that's just not the same anywhere else.
it's so interesting, that family and that community thing, because I didn't go to East. This kind of comes up every week in the podcast. I kind of got adopted in by my wife, and um,
Hmm.
but there's something that kind of happens for a lot of us when you get into the community and into the family, and you start to recognize how special the place is, and so um,
Well, just to echo what I've said already about the teachers that were just so welcoming and accepting, that
right,
that probably wouldn't have happened at another school, and I probably would have not been able to shine in the ways that I did. Um, I ended up graduating sixth in my class, and I don't think I could have done that without the support of those special teachers. And then to go back to how your wife was one of my friends when I was a junior and didn't know anyone at East High. She and a group of senior girls took me under their wing, and I remember they would take me to Carl's Jr. back when we had off-campus lunch,
right,
and I would get waffle fries. And when my son was born, they came and visited and brought a stuffed animal, and just that's East High. That's just how people are. They're so welcoming and non-judgmental, and I
Yeah,
just love that.
it's the non-judgmental, welcoming. You know, I don't know how to say this other than to say it kind of straightforward. A lot of places are welcoming but judgy. You know, East isn't that place. You know, they'll welcome
Hmm.
you, and there's no, you know, but after it. There's no welcome, but it's hey, welcome, come on in.
Yeah.
And there's a beauty and a purity to that I noticed, right away. Like I said, as the school cop, I started falling in love with the school while I was still the police officer there, and you kind of
Hmm.
see the genuine care that the kids have for each other, and the adults have for the kids, and the way adults who were the kid there come back to make sure the next generation of kids there gets treated the way they were treated when they were kids there, which is what you're doing now. And there's a lot of beauty to that. Um, so
Right too. I think that also, that my ex-sister-in-law telling me that, she wanted to move because she would see so many students in her neighborhood, and I love seeing my students in my
yeah,
neighborhood.
yeah,
I love going, to the grocery store and seeing students from early in my career, with their children growing up. I love it. I love living in East Bakersfield, and the fact that I sent my kids to East Bakersfield High, and class of 2010, class of 2016.
yeah.
It's
It's
just,
awesome. It's as you know, I live over here on the east side too, and so it's fun to see ex students at Target. It's
yes.
it's fun to see them at the grocery store and to say hi and to see the parents that I interacted with, and um, to see the next kid come in. Now I'm at the point now, or I think this happened to you already, um, but I'm at the point now where I have my first known student of a student, as an
Oh,
incoming freshman this year, and it's interesting because he's friends with my son that's a freshman, so um, it's fun, and I love it. I love it. And they've been friends for years and playing football together and stuff, and so it has been fun to watch them grow up, and I do love living over here, and I look at it as a beautiful reason to live in the community that you work in.
hmm,
It's an added bonus for us. That's how our family looks at it. So, anything
right.
else that you got on your mind that you'd like to share, Elise?
No, I think I covered it.
Okay. Well, I got to tell you, it was about as fun as I thought it would be. That's for sure. It's a historic day that we're having today, and it was nice to be able to talk with you a little bit about the Blade experience on this November 7th, 2020 Saturday. Most unique Saturday in a long time. I'll just say that. So,
Yes. Yes.
so all right, Elise, it was great to talk to you. Thank you so much for carving out some time for me. I appreciate you.
Of course, it's been my pleasure.
All right. And that was another awesome Blade family reunion discussion this week with Elise Sotelo. Elise always is fun to talk to, amazing. She's another one that bleeds red and blue like everyone we've talked to. And her hats that she wears for the school are so important, like everyone I've talked to. We've got so much stuff up in that archiving room that Elise has come across and is a steward of, and she just handles that business so professionally and amazingly. I hope you enjoyed hearing from her this week as much as I enjoyed talking to her. Clearly, this was great, talking to a friend. So, Blades far and wide, as you know, this is my labor of love, and I'll do it no matter what. I love talking to our people, but I'm also trying to raise a little scholarship money for our kids so that we can put together some summer program opportunities starting next summer, in the summer of 21, and also give a little scholarship money out to the class of 21 students who deserve it and are principal scholarship worthy. Hopefully you can reach into your pockets and donate now. Give our finance office a call. Stephanie would love to hear from you and take your donations, and I would love it if you did it. Hey, listen, I'll be back again next week. We're entering those years, as you heard, where my wife went to the school, so it's going to be fun to talk to some of the graduates from then and hear what they have to say about Mrs. Holland. I love you guys. Until next time, this has been the Blade Family Reunion Podcast. Thank you for listening. I care. I love you. Hang in there in this pandemic. What a wild day. November 7th, 2020. Important day, wild day for America. I love you guys, and as always, go Blades.